What is up, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can send an email to eric@thatswrestling.com. If you're listening to this over on YouTube, you can find the podcast version on all your favorite podcast directories, or you can head over to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed over there. This show is dedicated to wrestling that I actually enjoy watching, which right now I am focusing on AEW and New Japan. So today I will be going over the AEW Dynamite show from October 9th. I was actually there in the arena, which is why I'm recording this a couple days late, because I got home at about 2 in the morning, and throughout the entire day on Thursday, I was pretty much dead to the world, so I did not have the energy to record the episode, so that is why it is coming out now. Also, I did actually watch the show back so I could catch anything that was said on commentary, so the people at home So I would see what all the people at home saw, so I would know what's going on as far as that as well, because there was some stuff that happened in the arena that I was not sure why it was happening, and I was hoping it was at least mentioned on commentary, or at least picking up some of the commentary. Obviously, for those who have seen it, there was a time where Pac came out onto commentary, which obviously we could not hear in the arena. Also, there was a video inset promo that Jimmy Havoc did. Also, that video did not have audio in the arena, so we weren't sure what he was saying. So there's that. So I'm just going to go over the show and then kind of give my thoughts about the live experience, as well as some other things going on. I went with my dad. He hasn't been keeping up with wrestling, so I got some fresh perspectives with him. Also, the guys I was sitting next to, one of them had not really been up to date on a lot of these people as well, so it was interesting hearing him talking to his buddy and myself while the show was going on. So I got a little bit of insights of somebody who had not been up on the product going all the way through and has really only seen the first show on TNT and hadn't seen like any of the pay-per-views leading up to that first show. So the opening up of the show started with the opening credits and pyro, which is always fun. And then JR actually called the Agganis Arena the August Arena, so I thought that was pretty funny. Anyways, the announcers go over the card for the night, which is always a good thing, kind of setting up everybody what's going on. I don't think we got anything like that in the arena. Fortunately, all the matches were announced ahead of time on the website and on Twitter and whatnot, but it would have been nice to have at least an announcement on what matches were going to be taking place for those who were in the arena. Anyways, the first match on the card is the Young Bucks versus Private Party for the first round of the tag title tournament. And there was a nice little video package of the teams talking about themselves and how the Young Bucks signed Private Party. And, the Young Bucks were talking about how they felt that they've been the best tag team in the world for the past 5 to 10 years, and how Private Party, they signed Private Party to come into AEW. The crowd was super hot for the Young Bucks when they came out. There were loud elite chants, and then also the camera showed that SCU and the Hybrid 2 were sitting in the crowd. They're also in the tag tournament. Private Party, some funny things that happened with that. Private Party was announced from a location where you need an invitation to get in, and they were billed at weighing in at 24 ounces of vodka cranberry, which I thought was pretty funny. They also had like a bouncer with a velvet rope at the top of the stage at the top of the ramp on the stage, and he had to, open it up to let them through. The crowd was super into Private Party as well. This entire match, the crowd was really on both sides of it, and it was really hard to figure out where the crowd was because the chants for both teams were very loud, and I don't think they really cared which way it went because they were really into both. Right off the bat, one thing I noticed that's a huge gripe for me with WWE, and I hate that they're doing it in AEW, is the constant changing of camera angles. I mean, Nick and Cassidy had just locked up, and there were like 8 to 10 cuts in the span of 8 to 10 seconds. It was so annoying, and I want them to cut that down. They should hold on to camera angles a lot longer, and especially when there's nothing really going on, there's no reason to cut the camera. They were just in a collar and elbow tie-up, and the camera changed like 3 times, and they hadn't even moved really. You could have just stuck on the hard cam that whole time, and it would have been so much better. It's a thing that bothers the crap out of me, and I hate when they do it, and I don't want to see AEW going down this road. So I really hope that they pull back and they hang on camera angles a lot longer because it's just super annoying. And now that I've said it, you guys will probably hate me for pointing it out, and now you're going to notice it everywhere. So anyways, right off the bat, they start in with a bit of some chain wrestling, Matt and Cassidy, and then, Nick and Cassidy, and then Nick spits his gum in Cassidy's face. Nick then hits a neck breaker on Cassidy while he's hung up in the ropes. Matt gets tagged in, does the senton over the top rope onto Cassidy, and then he runs across the ring to knock Mark off the apron and goes back to working on Cassidy, and then he hits a through the ropes drop kick on Quen, and then he hits a flipping neck breaker over Nick's knee on Cassidy again, and then Cassidy eventually turns around, got some amazing action. It's like impossible to keep up my note, like I couldn't even type notes fast enough for this thing. And then Mark Quen hits a springboard cross body, and then he does 4 dives in a row onto Matt and Nick on opposite sides of the ring. So he runs out one side, hits Matt, and then he runs through the other side and hits Nick, and then runs through again and does the same thing twice. And I believe he did different types of dives on all 4 of them. I know one of them was like a flip dive and one of them was like a corkscrew dive. It was pretty crazy. Nick then gets Mark Quen into the sharpshooter, and the crowd loudly chants, tap, tap, tap. And then it was insanely loud. I was there, and you could not hear anything else other than that. And then at this point, Matt and Quen are the legal men. The pace kind of slows down a bit. I'm not sure if they were in a break or anything like that. And then the Bucks are making some real quick tags in and out. Loud chants of "This is wrestling" or "Tag team wrestling." I couldn't tell which one they were yelling, and I was there. So I think half the people were yelling "This is wrestling" and some were chanting "Tag team wrestling." Again, I couldn't really tell on exactly what they were talking about. Anyways, Isaiah Cassidy has finally gotten up. Oh, actually, I totally missed a spot. There was a spot where Matt actually gave Isaiah Cassidy a power bomb out on the ramp, which was crazy. Everybody's chanting "holy shit." And then after a little while, Cassidy finally gets back up onto the apron. Quen goes for the tag, but Nick pulls Cassidy off the apron. The Bucks then are actually working a little bit more vicious as the match goes on. Like we should have been able to put these guys away by now, and they're kind of getting a little bit of frustration. They're kind of acting a little more vicious. And then there's some dueling chants for both teams, and then Cassidy gets a tag and does a drop kick off the top rope, and then he does a kip up, and he's selling his back from the power bomb that he received out on the apron. And then it's just some great selling on his part. He's selling the back quite a lot. And then Matt buries a forearm into the back. And then Matt hits 3 Northern Light suplexes in a row. And then Quen comes in, and Matt actually gives him a Northern Light suplex as well at the same time as Cassidy. So he does a double suplex a Northern Light suplex and gets a 2 count out of it. The Bucks then hit that buckle bomb kick where Matt kind of gives the person a buckle bomb and Nick gives him a kick in the back of the head while he's on the outside. Matt then puts the sharpshooter on Cassidy, and Cassidy starts crawling towards the rope, and then out of nowhere, Nick hits a huge face buster over the top rope, and then he flips off the apron and hits Mark Quinn. Cassidy then finally gets a burst of energy and makes it to the ropes. And in this exchange, Matt kind of backs up towards the Private Party corner, and Quinn gets in a blind tag, and then Cassidy hits a Poison Rana on Matt, and then they hit Gin and Juice on Nick, and Nick ends up rolling out to the floor. Mark Quinn hits a Shooting Star Press on Matt, but Matt gets out at 2. Then Matt sets up Mark Quinn for the Meltzer driver, but Cassidy pulls Nick off the apron, and Cassidy ends up rolling up Matt. 1, 2, 3. Huge upset. Private Party gets the win over the Young Bucks, and they move on in the tag team tournament that's going on. Both of the members of Private Party head out into the crowd to celebrate, which they did throughout the entire commercial break, moving on to different sections. It was pretty cool. This match has been received kind of both ways. Some people are saying it's great that the Private Party won. It shows that the Young Bucks are willing to put over younger talent, even though they have the power to book themselves strong. Others are saying, the Bucks should be booked strong because they are one of the best tag teams, and AEW should be putting their best foot forward and showing off their best talent. And really, I think in this case, it could really go either way, though I think the Young Bucks should have gone over. It would have made Private Party still look amazing, even in defeat, how this match went. But yeah, I really think the Young Bucks should have gone over. I know it's going to be hard for the Bucks and Cody and Kenny Omega to book themselves appropriately, because all of them are kind of the biggest stars in the promotion. I mean, Omega, Cody, the Young Bucks, Jericho, and Moxley are probably the 6 most popular people, and 4 of those people are part of management, which is going to be a fine line. But I think in this case, because the Bucks are so over and they are so popular and everybody really likes the Bucks and whatnot, I think it would have been fine, and it would not be seen as themselves booking themselves strong in this case. I mean, they're really in a tight spot. They don't want to come off as being greedy of the spotlight or booking themselves strong, but you also don't. They shouldn't be booking themselves to be weak either. And that's kind of what's been going on. The Young Bucks have lost quite a lot already in AEW, as well as Kenny Omega has. Really, of the 3 acts that wrestle and are also management, Cody's kind of the only one that has been booked strong, where I think really all of them should have been booked strong the whole time. And they just need to kind of pay attention to the crowd, and as long as the crowd is not turning on them, then they know they're all right as far as that goes. I think they just need to monitor the response and then plan accordingly from there. If they think they're getting pushed too hard and the crowd starts to turn on them, that's kind of when you pull back the reins. But I don't think coming out of the gate, you want to build stars for AEW out of the gate, and they really should be pushing. Unfortunately, they need to be pushing themselves, because they are the biggest stars in that promotion, and that's just how it goes. But anyways, here Private Party moves on, and like I said, the crowd was into both teams, and it's a good choice either way. we'll see how it goes. But now with Private Party beating the Young Bucks, I would think that Private Party should at least make it to the finals. But we'll see. But I think if they beat the Young Bucks, they really should get pushed to at least the finals if they don't win it all. So we'll see how that goes in the future. So moving on, the next segment, Jericho's music hits and they come out, his entire group that we saw at the end of last week's show. So we have Jack Hager, Ortiz, Santana, and Sammy Guevara all come out with Chris Jericho. And something that really funny, Tony Schiavone mentioned that Jericho has the strap, and JR asked, are they allowed to even say strap? And it was pretty funny because they actually said, quote, can we even say strap on the show? So I think it was funny because he said strap on, so that was pretty funny. But just going, there's none of this corporate speak. So Jericho gets on the mic, cuts a promo. This is basically Jericho doing a promo masterclass 101. He puts over himself. He puts over all the guys that he's with. He plugs the pay-per-view coming up. He plugs next week's show. He makes everybody look like stars. And going through kind of what he said, Jericho claims credit for the highest rated premiere on TNT history. There's a whole bunch of thank you Jericho chants, and then he kind of like turns a bit heel and tells everybody to shut up. He's talking. He puts his crew over. He calls Sammy a Spanish god and that he's on his list. And Santana and Ortiz are psychos and dirtier and nastier than ever. They're pit bulls among pit bulls, back alley street fighter brutes, and he likes it. And he says, Viva la Raza. And it's actually Eddie Guerrero's 52nd birthday on that day. And then there's chants of Eddie. And he says that Santana and Ortiz are on his list. And then he says Jake Hager, and a We the People chant breaks out. But Jericho shuts it down right away. He says the We the People sucks. It's dead and buried. And that is a stupid idea from bad creative. And that's gone. And the entire crowd goes crazy. And then he talks about how Jake Hager is undefeated, and that's a shoot. He's undefeated in MMA, and that's a shoot. And then he says he is calling the group of them the Inner Circle, and that they're taking charge of, or they're taking control of AEW, and they're in charge now. And he doesn't care if the Young Bucks, Omega, and Cody think they're in charge. Cuts a promo on Cody saying he doesn't like him. He doesn't like his family. He thinks Dusty Rhodes was a jerk, and he thinks Dustin Rhodes is a moron. He puts over Full Gear that match is coming up and says he's going to beat the ever-loving shit out of him, and that they're the Inner Circle, and you're welcome. So, again, this is brilliant promo work from Jericho. Obviously, some of the stuff was completely unscripted, especially probably the We the People stuff. He might have kind of had it in his back pocket knowing that chant might come up. So you never know. He might have just, if it came up, he'd use it. If it didn't, he wouldn't. But it was an amazing promo, and I think this is kind of what you get. And having somebody like Jericho who knows how to cut promos unscripted, I'm sure he had kind of these bullet points in his mind, and he could have scripted his own promo, which is perfectly fine, but it's all his words, and everything that comes out felt natural and something that the character of Jericho would say, and he's just a shining example of what can happen. So, moving on, after that, we had the Jimmy Havoc versus Darby Allin match for the number one contendership. So, going into this match, there was, or is even still, a bit of controversy on why are these two getting a number one contenders match. At the point of going into this match, I believe Jimmy Havoc was something like 1 1-3 or 1-4 going into this match, and Allen was 1-1-1. So not very good records. Havoc obviously has a pretty skewed losing record. Of course, that's not all singles. That's not all singles matches, but still, I think at this point they kind of slightly booked themselves into the corner, because they said at the Philadelphia show is where Jericho is going to be doing the first title defense. So they needed to come up with a number one contender. They don't want to do Cody because he's already set for Full Gear. Pac is undefeated, but that's also a pay-per-view match as well. So I think they're just kind of making the best out of the situation, and it's fine because it's going to be a TV title defense. But really, this is going to elevate whoever moves on to face Jericho. I think whoever faces Jericho is going to be elevated in defeat, because I really doubt whoever wins the match is going to actually take the title from Jericho at this point. Jericho's got to hold on to that title for a good long while to establish that title as a strong title. But that's kind of how it is. There was an inset promo from Jimmy Havoc. Like I said at the beginning of the show, the audio didn't play in the arena, but we could see it on the screen going, but there's just no audio to go with it. We were just hearing Jimmy Havoc's music in the arena. So I mean, that's something they just might want to work out just to make the live experience a little bit better for those who are there, because we could see it but we couldn't hear it. It was kind of annoying. And it was a little awkward with Jimmy Havoc actually standing out there looking at the screen with himself on it but not hearing what he was saying. But I did watch it from the TV feed later before I recorded this, and it was a good promo. I hope they do more of these to set up more of these matches, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyways, Allen goes for... actually, before this, the crowd was hot for both people. Darby Allin got a huge pop when he came out. Starting off the match, Allen asks for a handshake, but Havoc tries to take advantage of it, but it doesn't work. They start off with a bit of chain wrestling here. Allen hits that huge springboard arm drag that he does, where he kind of jumps up onto the top rope and then kind of springboards up and does that really high arm drag. He does a shotgun drop kick to Havoc in the corner. Allen then tries to... So Havoc ends up out on the apron at one point, and Allen is trying to suplex him back into the apron, but Jimmy Havoc actually ends up giving Darby Allin a suplex from inside the ring all the way to the floor in front of the ramp. It looked crazy. I mean, you always see that move teased, but it pretty much never happens. And in this case, it actually happened. Though looking, I think they did have a little bit of extra padding at the bottom of the ramp, because I think in one of the dark matches, there was another spot over there that would have totally sucked if it was not padded a little bit more. So I think there was a little bit of extra padding over there at the bottom of the ramp. So probably wasn't as bad, but we'll see. They get back into the ring. Havoc is still in control at this point. Havoc is all about biting the fingers, so he bites the fingers a few different times throughout this. So at one point he's biting the fingers, and the ref gives him a 5 count, kind of pulls him off, and I thought it was hilarious because I could tell from my seat, Havoc is saying, I'm sorry. Like, he's trying to be sincere about it. Obviously, it's a lie, but pretty funny. He continues to manipulate the fingers. It's kind of a thing that he's going after. He's kind of working on Darby Allin's hand. I really like how Darby Allin moves and the way he sells. He kind of has a bit of a loose Gumby style of selling. It's very similar to how I think Ricochet is really kind of a good, another one who I love his selling, because it's just kind of so loose and floppy, like Gumby. He just kind of flops around. And even one of the guys next to me, he hadn't seen any Darby Allin, and he actually commented that he really likes how Darby Allin sells. And then I believe they went to commercial, and during the commercial, Havoc keeps on working over Darby Allin's hand. He slams it in the ring post. He slams it into the ring bell, which I could actually hear from like across the arena. It was pretty loud. And actually the person next to me is like, wait, what just happened? I'm like, he just slammed his hand into the ring bell, and then he stomps on the ring steps with it. Havoc hits a couple suplexes into the turnbuckle once they get back into the ring. He hits a Falcon Arrow, and then he puts on a sleeper hold. Darby Allin finally gets out of the sleeper hold, and then Havoc actually tries to put on the sleeper hold again. And then with Jimmy Havoc on his back, Darby Allin starts to climb the ropes, and he gets up onto the second rope and then kind of does his coffin drop with Jimmy Havoc still on his back. Excalibur called it a backpack coffin drop, so I guess that's what you can call it. Jimmy Havoc starts to go back to biting the fingers again, and then Allin actually gets out of that, and he does a springboard corkscrew splash. He kind of like jumps onto the second rope like, Jericho would do a lion salt, but in this case, he kind of did a corkscrew back into a splash on him. Very cool move. And from there, Havoc hits a huge right hand, and then it does a Death Valley driver into the turnbuckle for a 2 count. He hits a Tiger Driver 98. Allin barely gets his fingertips on the ropes to avoid the 3 count. Havoc then goes for the Acid Rainmaker, but as he's doing the ripcord, Darby Allin actually bites his finger for a change. Then he does his flip over stunner, and while Havoc is lying there in the middle of the ring, Darby Allin goes up to the top rope and hits his coffin drop, and he gets the 3 count. So Darby Allin pins Jimmy Havoc with the coffin drop, and he will be facing Chris Jericho next week on AEW Dynamite for the AEW Heavyweight Championship. I thought this was a really good match. It wasn't as exciting as you would expect for these two, but it was still a very good match. These two are kind of more known for some of the more crazy stuff, but it was a solid match. I can't really complain. And yeah, so moving on, we're going to see Darby Allin next week, and I think it's going to be a very cool showcase to see Darby Allin in there with Chris Jericho. So after that, they went to commercial. Coming back, we have Emi Sakura and Bea Priestley versus Riho and Britt Baker. So this is one of those matches that I'm going to touch on because no one other than Riho has had a promo in AEW. So if you're new, you'd have no idea what these people are about. And I've only seen Emi Sakura at, I believe, Double or Nothing, where she was at. Bea Priestley, we've seen, but she has yet to cut a promo, so we don't know what she's all about. We know she has an issue with Britt Baker for whatever reason. And then the only thing we know about Britt Baker is that she's a dentist. But it's like, whoop-de-doo. I mean, we don't get any promos from any of these people. And I know they post a lot of stuff on Twitter and social media and whatnot, but I haven't seen that stuff. I've seen a good hunk of the stuff, but I haven't seen anything with any of these 3 ladies that I mentioned. So this is one of the things they really need to put some of these packages together so we can get some introductions to these people, because if you're new, or even if you're not, and I've watched all the AEW shows back from All In and then Double or Nothing, Fight for the Fallen, Fyter Fest, All Out. I've seen them all, and these people are not introduced even through those. So people tuning in to TNT for the first time and seeing these ladies for the first time really need to get some sort of introduction. As far as Emi Sakura goes, it was nice because JR did throw to Excalibur to explain why Emi is a legend. She's won multiple championships in multiple promotions. She started her own promotion over in Japan. She's trained many wrestlers, including Riho, who she is facing. So, right there, it's a little bit, but it really could use some more and not just Excalibur giving us a little bit of information about one of these ladies. So just something they really need to work on. They really need to start introducing these people because it has been very light on any of the character work other than what happens in the ring. So anyways, when Riho came out, huge pop. The crowd started off really hot for this match, kind of died towards the middle, and then it kind of came back near the end. Riho and Emi start off with a nice exchange. Loud Riho chants break out. Emi does a bit of hair pulling and actually tosses Riho in the air by her hair. Priestley then gets the ref to turn her back. Aubrey Edwards was the ref for this. Gets her to turn her back, and she starts choking Riho behind the ref's back, I believe with the tag rope. Not 100% sure on that. Emi puts on the surfboard on Riho and then just kind of like kicks her up in the air and drops her. I don't think I've seen that exit from the surfboard before. And Emi knocks Baker off of the apron, and then Priestley and Baker start brawling on the outside. They've had a huge issue ever since the Casino Royale match, because Priestley pulled Baker over the top rope at the end of that match, costing her the chance at the AEW Women's Championship. So they brawl out on the floor, and then she gets thrown into the Baker gets thrown into the barricade. Emi and Priestley then end up hitting a double suplex on Britt Baker on the floor, and then Riho comes flying off the top rope doing a crossbody to Emi and B, and then Riho has an exchange with Priestley, hits a 619, and then tags in Britt Baker. Priestley hits a double stomp when Baker is kind of slumped over, so she hits it off the top rope. Emi hits a spear on Baker from the outside, so Baker is over in one of the corner opposite adjacent to Emi's corner that she's in on the outside. So she actually runs down the side of the apron and then basically jumps through the middle ropes and does a spear on the way into the ring. It was very cool. I haven't seen that before. Anyways, Emi and B. Priestley hit double kicks on Britt Baker while she's down on her knees. Baker and Priestley then have an exchange of forearms. Baker gets Priestley caught up into the ropes, and Riho hits a double stomp on her back while she's kind of draped over the ropes, and then Baker hits a draping DDT, but Emi comes in to break up the pin. Of course, she does a splash onto Britt Baker, who is covering B. Priestley. So it's like she hurts her own teammate by doing the splash, and so she's kind of out. So she has to drag B. Priestley over to their corner, and then Emi Sakura gets out of the ring and tags herself in after dragging Priestley over to their corner. She hits a cross body onto Britt Baker, who's over in the corner, and then she hits a Vader bomb. Funny thing on commentary, Tony thinks it's so cool that it's called a Vader bomb. He didn't know that it was named that way. JR jokes that they were going to call it a Leon White bomb, but it didn't sound as good. Tony sounds genuinely happy to be calling wrestling again, even though, he doesn't know some of these people, he doesn't know some of these moves, but he sounds like he is in heaven. And with him and JR there, it's such a throwback, and they both seem pretty happy about what they're doing, and having Excalibur there to back up anything. If they need to know anything about any of these competitors, he's got all that knowledge, and any of these moves, he's got all that knowledge. So it does work out. There were some quips or some falters throughout this show, but I think they'll smooth out over time. Anyways, Britt Baker actually hits a desperation stunner. Riho comes in, and then she hits a desperation stunner, gets a tag to Riho. Riho then hits a double stomp on Emi, 2 count after a swinging neck breaker from Britt Baker, and then Riho and Bea Priestley are fighting out on the floor. Britt Baker gets Emi into the rings of Saturn and then adds in a mandible claw and gets the submission. So Britt Baker submits Emi Sakura for the win for her team. After the match, Bea and Britt are really going at each other. They have a couple pull-aparts. They get pulled apart and they get back together and fighting again and pulled apart. And Aubrey Edwards kind of finally gets Bea Priestley out of the ring, saying the match is over, and getting her out of there. And that is the end of that match and segment. After we come back from commercial, it ends up kind of being kind of awkward. There is a quick best friends promo. They show a clip of them hugging. It was hugging in the park. That was in one of the Road to videos. I'm not sure if it was Road to All Out or Road to TNT, but it was one of them. They're asked how they're feeling about going against SCU next week. Chucky T says, "Don't ask us, ask this guy." And they kind of spread apart, and they show Orange Cassidy sitting there in the front row, and he gives the lazy thumbs up. And then immediately it cuts to darkness. It's like, wait, what's going on? I was very confused about what was going on. And then suddenly there's a spotlight up at the top of the ramp showing Shawn Spears sitting in a chair, though I didn't realize it was Shawn Spears until he actually got up and started walking them. Oh, wait a minute, that's Shawn Spears. And so if you watch this on TV, that is exactly how it went down in the arena. Same amount of time, same timing and everything. It was very odd. It was immediately after the Best Friends promo, going straight to that. It was just a very, very weird transition. They needed some sort of transition there because it did not flow and was really confusing, especially being in the audience. The commentary is saying that Tully thinks he didn't do a very good job with Shawn Spears at All Out. He didn't account for, MJF being there at ringside and all that. During the commercial, Pac actually ends up joining the commentary team. And what wasn't shown on TV, Shawn Spears cuts a quick 4-word promo and hands it over to Tully. Tully cuts a short promo saying, Shawn asked me to help get him in shape so he could become a champion, and that we'll see that tonight. Then once we come back, the broadcast team welcomes Pac to the broadcast booth, but he says nothing. He just kind of stares ahead. There's a huge crowd pop for Jon Moxley when he came out, and right as Moxley hits the ring, he gets up in Shawn Spears' face right away, and then they start to brawl. Loud chants of "Let's go Moxley." Shawn Spears gets tossed to the outside, and then he gets slammed into the barricade. Tully actually ends up grabbing Moxley's arms when he's trying to go after Shawn Spears. And Moxley turns around and he walks down Tully, and Shawn Spears tries to attack Moxley from behind but fails. Spears gets back into the ring, and Shawn Spears actually distracts the ref, and Tully pushes Moxley into the ring steps. And so this kind of turns the tides here. Spears goes outside. They brawl on the outside for a bit. Spears then gives Moxley a Death Valley driver into the corner of the barricade. So kind of like how Jimmy Havoc did to Darby Allin inside the ring into the turnbuckle. It looked bad, but I watched it closely, and Shawn Spears was protecting Moxley's head. So it wasn't as bad as it looked. He was definitely protecting him, it wasn't a dangerous thing or anything like that. Moxley rolls back into the ring, and Shawn Spears continues to work him over. The match kind of slowed down a bit through what I believe was a commercial break. Spears goes for a dive and hits it, and then he tosses Moxley back into the ring, and Spears starts kind of playing up to the crowd a bit, and he's not paying attention. He has his back to the ring, and then Moxley ends up hitting a dive of his own and kind of turns the match back around. So a bit of arrogance and gloating for Shawn Spears was kind of his undoing. Moxley is laying in some forearms and some chops. He hits a high knee, then he hits a running knee that looks pretty much like a Bomaye / Kinshasa, whatever you want to call it. Then they get into a striking exchange. Spears hits the Ushigoroshi for a 2 count. I don't understand why he used this as a finisher when he was Ty Dillinger in the WWE. It made no sense because a lot of guys use the Ushigoroshi, most namely is AJ Styles uses it a lot, and I don't know why he used this as a finisher. It was kind of stupid. Anyways, Moxley kicks out of that, and then he Spears, while Moxley is on his knees, Spears holds up his 10 fingers, doing 10 to him and whatnot. Again, this is a gimmick that Spears should have left in the old promotion and not. He really if he's going to repackage himself, he should get rid of this crap. Anyways, Moxley grabs his hands and he pulls him in for a headbutt, and then he hits the paradigm shift, which is the elevated double arm the double underhook DDT that he does. It's also called the Death Rider in New Japan, but they're calling the paradigm shift in AEW. So right there, Moxley hits his finisher and gets the 3. After the match, Kenny Omega walks out carrying a barbed wire wrapped bat and a barbed wire wrapped broom. Excalibur makes a mention that Kenny Omega is sometimes called the Cleaner. Again, this is one of those things that hasn't been fleshed out in AEW. So if you don't know the history of Kenny Omega, this would make no sense to you because, again, Omega has not cut a promo in AEW, so kind of annoying. After the match, anyways, that goes down. Moxley and Omega kind of walk towards each other, and then Kenny throws Moxley the bat that's wrapped in barbed wire, tells him to pick it up, but then Pac runs up from behind and hits Omega in the back of the head with a chair, so he's laid out on the ramp, and Moxley is holding the bat, and he turns to look at the fallen Omega. He looks at the bat, he thinks about it, and he tosses the bat down and walks away. So it was a nice character work right there. You think that Moxley might take advantage of Omega now that he's down or anything like that, but he has some sort of moral code here that he doesn't want to kick a guy while he's down. So it was good. He threw the bat down and he just walked away. Again, this is one of those matches. So the Moxley Spears match, again, I can't figure out why this happened, but I did see after the show that Moxley had cut a promo about this match, and it was put up on Twitter, but they didn't put the promo on the TV show, which makes absolutely no sense because the promo is only like 2 minutes long, and it was a spectacular promo. So they could have found 2 minutes somewhere to be able to play this promo because it was short and sweet and it was really good. And really, if they wanted to, they could have cut that promo down to a minute because some of it was just a camera following Moxley as he's walking into the stadium. So they could have cut a good 30 seconds to a minute out of it. So really, the promo could have been a whole minute long, but for whatever reason, they didn't do it. So really, I have no idea why Moxley and Spears had this match. It doesn't seem like they had anything and any reason to collide at this point. So why this match happened? So again, this is one of those things. You got to tighten it up, guys. You just need to figure out why these matches are happening and explain to the audience why they're happening. Not everybody is going to be hanging on your Twitter. And if you're going to put a promo out at 3 p.m. in the afternoon right before the show, not everybody is going to see it. So you got to put those things into the actual show. So for those of us, or not specifically me, but for those people who do only watch the show and are not following all these YouTube channels and social medias that they aren't left out and don't feel like all this is an inside joke or this inside information that they should be knowing and feel lost. They should not. Anybody who comes in to watch this on TNT and TNT is the only thing they watch, they should not feel lost about the product. If anything happens off of Dynamite, it should be brought up on the show to explain why such and such is happening. It's just something that it just needs to be tightened up, and I hope they do in future episodes. So just kind of one of my main gripes about AEW at the moment. So after that, we have the main event of the evening. We have Dustin Rhodes and Hangman Page against Jericho and Sammy Guevara. So really going into this match, at least there's some story, even though they didn't really play up any. Again, there was no promo for this match. So as far as why this match is happening, really you just kind of have to derive. So we have Page lost to Jericho for the title. Cody, who is Dustin's brother, is going to be facing Jericho for the title. Also, the previous week, Jericho's cohorts of the Inner Circle also beat down Dustin when he came to help Cody during the beatdown at the end of the previous episode. So really, that's kind of the story going into it. Of course, this was not played up. There was no vignette. There was no 15, 20-second video package to cover this information. And I don't even think they really mention it too much on commentary either. So that is what, at least my interpretation of why this match is happening. One thing I want to say is that Sammy Guevara is solidly a heel. There are a lot of characters in AEW that are kind of shades of gray, and they're really contextual, whether they're heel or face. But I think as far as Sammy Guevara goes, he is clearly in the heel category. He is just wholly unlikable and annoying as hell, and I think everybody just wants to see him beat up. Also, for this match, Jack Hager is sitting at ringside as well. Well, not sitting, he's standing at ringside in Jericho's corner. Everybody got pretty huge pops. Sammy did get boos when he came out, but everybody else kind of had cheers. So it looks like Dustin is going to start off with Sammy, but Dustin Rhodes wants Jericho. Jericho tags in, and classic heel move, he tags right back out, but Dustin's not having any of it. Even though he's no longer the legal man, Dustin attacks from behind anyways, and he beats Jericho on the outside. He actually does kind of a hockey jersey pull over the head and starts laying in punches like a good old hockey fight. Jericho then gets thrown over the barricade at one of the corners, and Sammy comes flying off the apron only to eat a punch from Dustin Rhodes. Hangman eventually gets tagged in, and Dustin and Hangman work like they've been tagging forever. They hit succinct moves one after the other, kind of alternating. Dustin hits one, Hangman hits one, Dustin hits another, Hangman hits another. They do some double team moves. The commentary is constantly comparing Hangman to Barry Windham. Actually, throughout this whole match, Barry Windham used to tag with Dustin Rhodes way back when. Hangman hits a crossbody over the top rope onto Jericho, hanging out on the floor. He gets back in and continues to work over Sammy. So Dustin and Hangman are just working over Sammy. They do some nice quick tags, Rhodes and Hangman, that is, make some nice quick tags in and out, working over Sammy some more. Hangman hits a standing shooting star press for a pin, but it gets broken up by Jericho. Hangman goes up to the top rope, and Jericho tries to intervene, but he kind of gets kicked off to the floor. But it was just enough. Sammy managed to get a kick in on Hangman. He starts climbing up the ropes, and he actually picks up Hangman on his shoulders and then kind of drops Hangman across the top turnbuckle, stomach first. I have seen only Roddy Strong do that type of move, but usually it's back first. But very interesting, very, very innovative offense. You don't see that type of thing very often. Sammy gets a tag over to Jericho. Jericho and Sammy get in a little offense behind the ref's back. Sammy hits a standing moonsault and tags in Jericho after a 2 count. And Jericho hits a stalling vertical suplex on Hangman. And then he does his classic kind of flexing his muscles in front of Dustin Rhodes. I love the arrogance that Jericho is showing. He's just a classic heel. And here's one of the slip-ups that JR has had. He said, Jericho is the psychological maestro of AWA. It's AEW there, JR, but we'll forgive you. But he actually did say AWA a couple times throughout this show. So just something to be aware of, that JR needs to just tighten up to figure out which promotion he's working for. Sammy gets tagged in and he knocks Dustin off the apron, so Hangman can't get the tag. Hangman hits a desperation suplex, but Jericho gets tagged in before Hangman can make a tag. Jericho is just kind of toying with Hangman, and Jericho drops Hangman, goes for a lionsault, but Hangman gets his knees up. Sammy cuts him off, but Hangman then hits this massive discus lariat, knocks Sammy silly, and then he gets a tag over to Dustin. Dustin lays out Sammy with a clothesline, and then a atomic drop, and then a boot to the face, and then Jericho tries to get involved, and Dustin hits him with an atomic drop, and then as both Sammy and Jericho are kind of stumbling around in the middle of the ring, Dustin climbs up to the second rope, and then he does a crossbody onto both of them for a massive pop from the crowd. I mean, this is something that it's not super flashy. It's very basic wrestling, but the crowd was so into everything that Dustin Rhodes does that he's just putting on a good, solid wrestling match that people care about the characters involved, which makes the match feel so much more big. It feels so much bigger, even though he's not doing these massive high spots or anything. He's just going in there, doing basic wrestling, solid basic wrestling, and really getting the crowd behind him. And then Dustin throws Sammy to the outside. Hangman does a moonsault off the top rope to the floor, and Jake Hager then comes bowling around the corner and lays out Hangman behind the ref's back. Dustin sets up Jericho for the Shattered Dreams, but Sammy comes in, but he ends up eating a power slam. While Sammy is down, the ref kind of goes over to check on Sammy, and Sammy grabs the ref's shirt and he's holding him. Jake Hager comes into the ring, lays out Dustin, and then Jericho hits the Judas effect on Dustin Rhodes and he gets the pin. After that, they are all celebrating in the ring, the inner circle of Jericho, Sammy Guevara, and Jake Hager. They're all celebrating in the ring, and then after their hands are raised, they start beating down Dustin. Eventually, Hangman Page comes in, and he gets sent to the outside. Hangman then hits Jake with a chair, and the two of them end up brawling all the way to the back. So now it's Sammy and Jericho beating down Dustin in the ring. There's nobody else out there to help Dustin. Then suddenly the lights go out, and then the lights come back on, and Cody is standing in the ring, hits an awesome crossroads onto Sammy. I don't think I've ever seen I have seen somebody take a crossroads like that. Kota Ibushi took a crossroads like this as well, but it was an awesome crossroads he did to Sammy. Cody squares up to Jericho, but then Santana and Ortiz come in from behind and start beating down Cody and Dustin. Then MJF comes down with a chair in hand, and the inner circle is all surrounded Cody, and then Jericho's kind of lifting Cody up to stand him up, and MJF is looking at Cody, looking at the chair. And everybody thinks that right there, MJF is going to turn and join the inner circle, and MJF starts attacking Santana and Ortiz with the chair. Huge, massive pop. It was insanely loud. I don't think I've heard a pop that loud since like 2001 when I was in Providence and Steve Austin came in to make the save during the invasion angle. That day, is probably the loudest pop I've ever heard. And like, I don't know if you've ever been somewhere where it's so loud that your hearing distorts. Yeah, that's how loud it was. And MJF got a very similar reaction. But then MJF starts gloating to the crowd. He turns around. Jericho hits him with a code breaker. Then the Young Bucks run out to take out Santana and Ortiz. They knock them both to the outside. Then the Bucks both do a double dive over to the outside onto Santana and Ortiz. Jericho just kind of starts walking away, holding up the title. And then Dustin and Cody and the Bucks are in the ring. And then Jericho turns around. He starts walking up the ramp, but flying down the ramp comes Darby Allin on a skateboard. He takes out Jericho and then he starts using the skateboard as a weapon. He gets into the ring. So now we have a very interesting group here with Darby Allin. We have the Rhodes brothers, we have the Young Bucks, we have MJF, and we have Darby Allin kind of standing in the ring as a group. Jericho ends up grabbing the mic and says, "You stupid idiots don't know who you're dealing with." He says he'll meet Cody at Full Gear and that Darby Allin next week, it'll be your funeral, bitch. And then that is the end of the show right there, going off air. So something that happened here at the end that I've seen some complaining about is the lights out. And then when the lights come back on, there's Cody in the ring. But I think in this case, you could easily explain this away because Cody is one of the showrunners. He could have easily gone to, he's already in the back at Gorilla. So he could have told one of the production guys, "Hey, cut the lights because I'm going to go out there to help my brother. And then when I get to the ring, turn them back on." That's an easy explanation. I don't really find any fault with this. It's not supernatural or anything like Undertaker or Bray Wyatt or anything like that. This is an easily explained. He's already back there. He's in production already because he's one of the showrunners. So he just tells the tech guys, "Hey, I'm going out there, cut the lights so I can get out there and save my brother." I mean, it's something as simple as that. I don't really find a huge fault with this particular use of the lights out, run down to the ring, lights on, and there he appears. It's not really, it's not defying physics or logic, at least in my head. So at least that's how I explain it. So I was there in the arena that night. As far as the live experience goes, I was a huge fan of this live experience compared to the Raws and SmackDowns that I've been to. They worked very seamlessly with the commercial breaks. There were only a couple commercials where you knew where they were, but they weren't super long. They didn't hold up the audience for an extended amount of time. They didn't run a whole bunch of stupid commercials in the arena. So I think kind of the longest downtime was maybe like 90 seconds, because even after like they would cut to commercial because it was the end of a segment, those people would still be kind of doing stuff to kind of extend that segment out for the audience. 30 seconds to a minute, like I said, as far as the end of the Private Party match. They went to commercial while Private Party was out celebrating in the crowd. Well, throughout that entire commercial, Private Party just continued to celebrate through the crowd. So those of us in the audience didn't even really know that we were at commercial. The only reason I could think, I'm pretty sure we're at commercial is because Private Party just kept celebrating with the crowd. But again, they're engaging with the crowd, so the crowd is not bored and just kind of sitting on their hands. Like I said, there were a couple commercial breaks. You knew it was a commercial break, but again, the longest one was probably like 90 seconds before, with nothing really going on. The other ones are probably maybe a minute. So it wasn't a huge deal. Like I've been at WWE shows where you're sitting there, it feels like 5 minutes that you are just sitting there staring at nothing, or they have some stupid commercial playing on the screen. None of that. So the live experience was great. Like I said, they hid those commercials very well. You didn't even realize, especially during the matches, the action just kept continuing like it was a normal match. if you really look for it, you might realize, they've slowed down a little bit, but it wasn't like they grabbed a hold and just laid there on the mat or anything like that. So it was great. Excellent live experience. I definitely give it a big thumbs up as far as that goes. As I mentioned, one of my gripes, lack of character building. Why did Moxley and Spears have that match? They didn't build it up. Again, Britt Baker, Emi Sakura, no build up on any of their characters. We don't really know what they're about. We only know that for whatever reason, Britt Baker and Bea Priestley have a bug up their butt for each other. Don't know why. And then something that's kind of bugging me at this point is there's no announcement for what the card is going to be next week. Like, they could easily take 1 minute right before the main event and say, all right, we're going to our main event. Next week we have da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. You can bang it out in 30 seconds to a minute, no problem. And then one thing that is really, really bugging me is that there was no mention of AEW Dark. Now, it hadn't been announced yet by the time the show went on air last week, but this week we already know that AEW Dark exists. Now, AEW Dark, for those who haven't seen, is not just a collection of crappy undercard matches that mean nothing. They have implications, and that was kind of one of the reasons why Darby Allin was actually in the match today, is because he beat Shima in a match on AEW Dark. And if you didn't see last week's AEW Dark, there were 4 matches. They're all really good, and they're going to have implications. And as far as this upcoming week, this is what kind of blows my mind, that they didn't mention AEW Dark, because they know what matches are going to be on AEW Dark. And one of the biggest things is Kenny Omega is going to be having a match on AEW Dark coming this week. So if you have one of your biggest guys is having a match on AEW Dark, wouldn't you think you would promote that during the show on TNT so people tune in on YouTube to see it? It's going to be Kenny Omega and Joey Janela in an unsanctioned lights out match on AEW Dark. I was there. It was awesome. So they're putting this type of caliber match on AEW Dark. You need to be watching it, and they need to be promoting it. There's no reason they shouldn't be promoting this. Also, for AEW Dark, the matches that were taped were Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela in the lights out unsanctioned match, which was nuts. Then it was SCU plus Shima versus the Dark Order and the Hybrid 2, which is Angelico and Jack Evans. Also, very good match. But again, Dark Order, I don't get them. There's been no story as far as they're concerned. They just come out and have these weird guys with them. That's it. That's the best I can put it. And then the last match was, it's going to be Sonny Kiss, Peter Avalon, and Kip Sabian in a 3-way match. That was a very exciting match. The one thing that happened, I'm pretty sure Kip Sabian legit either broke or dislocated a finger. He did a dive, and then he went up the ramp, and he's kind of like bent over. You can see him pulling on his hand. He's kind of, and then he turns around and walks back down towards the ring, but he is yanking on his finger. Like, it looks like he's trying to get it back in place. So I think he might have dislocated it, but like I said, it could have been a break. Anyways, he gets back in. Aubrey Edwards checks on him. They're talking. And then I could tell she was calling kind of the next spots to get the other guys going so she could tend to him and he could get a little bit of medical attention. The ringside doctor or whoever helps him out for a minute. It looks like they came up with some sort of solution. Either they popped the finger back or they slapped some tape on it or something. I couldn't really tell. Anyways, Kip Sabian then gets back into the match. He is definitely not using that hand anymore. He's not throwing punches with it, which I think it was his dominant hand that he had the finger break or dislocation on. So he went on to finish the match. But You'll see that on AEW Dark. But yeah, I think he did legit either dislocate or break a finger, but I haven't seen anything about that come out. But yeah, like I said, they need to announce AEW Dark and they need to promote it, especially when there are matches like these on AEW Dark. They matter. They're good. They're not just crappy undercard matches. Also, again, I wish AEW would allow us to get AEW Plus on Fight TV. I would gladly pay the $5 a month to get it on Fight TV. Hell, I would pay $10 for it. Totally cool. I hope somebody decides, yeah, let's get this because, I need a live streaming service to watch this show. And another one mention about this was the commentary. I thought the commentary was fine. JR did mess up a couple of times, like I said, saying AWA. Tony seems to be loving what he's doing. Excalibur is great at his job and adding backstory and the knowledge that he has about the current product. If JR and Tony just kind of lean on on Excalibur a little more, I think it will be fine. It's definitely smoothing out. And I think just given a little bit more time now that, JR and Tony are getting more used to the product and more knowledge of these guys, I think it's just going to start flowing better and better because obviously they just need to up their knowledge a little bit, and that's just going to come with time and consuming the product. That's just how it is. So I don't give a huge fault on that. So all in all, it was a great show. It was fun to be there live. Definitely check out the AEW Dark coming up on Tuesday. Excellent matches. You're definitely going to like them. So that is where we stand for AEW Dynamite from October 9th, 2019. Great show. I hope they fix those small little things, and I think they will continue to grow. The ratings have already come out by the time I'm recording this, so the AEW audience did shrink a bit. They went from 1.4 million down to 1.1 and change. So they did lose roughly about 300,000, though NXT dropped another 100,000 from last week as well, down to under 800,000. So they're still, AEW is still out ahead. But again, there was heavy competition this week. There was Major League Baseball playoffs. So that probably going to bite into both of their audiences. So really, once the postseason for baseball is over, then maybe we'll start getting them to a little bit more consistency on how the numbers are going to play out. So far, I think AEW is doing a good job. They just need to tighten up some of these things. I'm glad that they've tightened up the reffing a little bit. They kind of went out of their way to make sure that the ref had their back turned when something was going to go down that would normally be a disqualification. So that's good. And I really hope they start getting some more promos in there, some video packages to hype up matches and promoting what's going to be on the next week. Actually, at this point, I believe most of the matches are known for what's happening next week. So we know we have a title match. We have Riho versus Britt Baker for the women's title. We have Darby Allin versus Chris Jericho for the AEW heavyweight title. And then I believe we have 2 matches that have been announced for the tag team tournament. Let me find it here. We have SoCal Uncensored against Best Friends, and that's going to be Christopher Daniels and Kazarian. And then, right? Yeah. And then we have the Lucha Bros versus Jurassic Express. So those are going to be the matches for the tag team tournament. And we also have a 5th match that has been announced. It's going to be Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus Pac and Jon Moxley. So right there, we have 5 matches already announced for next week. They've been kind of doing 5 matches in a show. I think that's a good number for the amount of time that they have. hopefully they fill in some of that extra time, give us some more video packages and promos to hype up these matches and whatnot. Obviously, right now for Kenny Omega, Hangman Page versus Pac and Moxley, Moxley and Kenny Omega have some strife with each other. Also, Hangman Page and Pac have some problems with each other as well. So that's kind of like the grudge match, and then the rest are, we got the 2 title matches and then the 2 tournament matches. So looking forward to AEW Dynamite next week. All right, so that's it for me today. I will be doing probably another show, just kind of giving some news updates and stuff like that, and some other opinions, either this weekend or maybe around Monday, or also maybe even right after AEW Dark or something like that. Also, the New Japan King of Pro Wrestling is going to be Monday morning, so I'm going to watch that show Monday evening. I probably won't record until Tuesday, so you'll have the post-show of King of Pro Wrestling probably on Tuesday from me, and then be sure to tune in live on Wednesday after Dynamite on the YouTube channel, which you can find in the description of this podcast, or you can search That's Wrestling on YouTube to find it. You can also follow me on Twitter at That's Wrestling 1, the number 1 at the end. Somebody else already had That's Wrestling, and they haven't touched it since 2012. But at That's Wrestling 1, I've been posting, just kind of quick breaking news. And then, as you heard earlier today, I hope you had a quick little 3.5 minute news alert that I put out. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, comments, questions, feedback, discussion topics you'd like to hear about, or anything you would like to mention to me, you can send an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. So until next time, which I don't know when that will be, but it will be soon, thanks for listening to That's Wrestling.